What is going on, everyone? Week 4 here. We are a month in, John. This is crazy. When it's like middle of like June and July, and you're like just so desperate for football to start, and then here we are like a month deep into the season. We got players like Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. No one wants to start. Peyton Barber might be a top 20 freaking running back this week. Football is crazy, and I love it. John, how's your week been?
Hey man, it's been going well, man. Of course, it's always good to see you, my friend. Always nice when we get to have this opportunity every Wednesday talking about our favorite flex plays and some of our favorite flex non-plays or players that shouldn't even
Roster decisions is what we called on this show.
roster decisions. That's what we call them. But yeah, man, it's always good to get here and have this opportunity to chop it up with you, talking some ball, man. And I totally feel that we want it to be football so bad, and then it's finally here, and I'm like, it's week 4, and I'm like, I'm exhausted, but we got this, man. I'm like I always say, I'm built for this, so let's get it done.
Oh, for sure. We know how we do. If you have joined us in the show before, we have breaking down some of our favorite plays and non-plays and all that, starting with the quarterback all the way down the tight end. Quarterback, though, John, who's your first quarterback you want to talk about on the show today?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I'm picking on a team here, but I'm gonna go after them 2 weeks in a row. Although last week wasn't so well for me in this spot. Daniel Jones finished as the quarterback 20, I believe, and going up against Atlanta. And Justin Fields did not come through at all.
No, he did not.
So hopefully it's a better week for us here. But I'm going to go with Taylor Heineke. Gets to go up against Atlanta. And, Taylor Heineke through 3 weeks has been a very solid quarterback for the Washington football team. Through 2 weeks now, and even half a game there in week 1 against the Chargers, but he's got quality weapons around him. Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas is a good weapon. At some point they'll get Curtis Samuel back, but he's got this matchup this week against Atlanta, who we targeted last week at Daniel Jones. Didn't exactly hit, but that game was just ugly in and of itself. I'm hoping that we get a much better game script here, and that Taylor Heineke, who has made plays both in the air and on the ground with his legs, can come here for us and improve on, East expert consensus rankings, quarterback 17. I think he can definitely get above that and can get into that top 12 territory.
Yeah, and there's actually a player I have ranked at 17 who I'm going to be talking about. And I feel like I'm always like the downer guy. I'm always saying the negatives on players instead of the positives. I did kind of talk up one player in this position last week, Derek Carr, and I talked down one in Josh Allen. He finished as the number 1 quarterback, so that was a really great call by me. Although I am the number 16 ranker this year for the season on Fantasy Pros, so I will take that. I have 200 rankers. I'm the 16th best, and that's kind of nuts because I ranked Fields over Josh Allen last week. So.
That's pretty wild. I mean, I had Fields up there last week as well.
QB10 to QB11 for Allen.
I think I came on here and said he was a top 5 play because that's where I had him in my ranking. So.
But so we need to talk about a player I don't like this week, and that's Ryan Tannehill. And I believe it starts with his weapons. So we believe A.J. Brown is not going to be active for this game. Julio Jones, we will never know if he'll be active or not because it goes back to Atlanta. A player that's perennially been available for like 70% of snaps and games played over his career. Ryan Tannehill is outside my top 15. He is not a top 12 option. Joe Burrow, I'd be rather starting him in the Thursday night game if we're going to be just locking in a quarterback immediately. Some other quarterbacks I am ranking ahead of Ryan Tannehill this week. Jimmy Garoppolo in that Seattle matchup. Seattle is like the worst defense. That is the fantasy gold mine right now for opposing offenses. Sam Darnold against Dallas. Kirk Cousins against Cleveland. Derek Carr is in my top 12. Not Ryan Tannehill. I think that game is just going to be Derrick Henry. I think 45 rush attempts might be too low. The New York Jets have only allowed 1 passing touchdown this year as well. I think that's more to the games just being awful. But any little thing we can use against Ryan Tannehill, I'm going to do that to keep my narrative on streak. But Ryan Tannehill, do not have him in your lineups. There are better options this week.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one. Definitely better options this week. And, I am the resident Jets fan, and I would never ask anybody to succumb themselves to watching the Jets for 60 minutes.
There are like
or even
3 or 4
longer.
different Jets things I can see in view on your screen. So yeah.
What are you talking about? There's nothing back there. But no, in all seriousness, the Jets defense has actually been the best part of that team. They've been playing.
They only scored 20 points, so their punting is great. It's just spectacular.
So they've been decent against the quarterback. They will be without Marcus May for like 3 to 4 weeks, so that could have some impact on the secondary that's already young. But for my second guy this week, I'm gonna go with Mac Jones. He's the expert consensus quarterback 27. I've got him as like 18. He's in that 18 to 20 range for me this week. But the matchup here is really good against Tampa Bay. Obviously, they just signed Richard Sherman, but I'm not going to be overly concerned. I think what we have to realize is Mac Jones, for the first time all year, will have to really air it out, because you are getting an offense here with Tom Brady, who is going to score a lot of points. You're gonna have to keep pace, right?
Yeah, Brady and Gronk are just.
This isn't Tua. This isn't Zach Wilson. This isn't Jameis Winston. You are going to have to score at least 30 points to have a chance in this one. And I think that with the matchup is good enough here against this Tampa Bay defense, where Mac Jones can have a respectable day, could be a streaming option for you, could also be in consideration if you play in 2 quarterback leagues. Mac Jones is my number 2 guy here.
Yeah, I originally had him unranked, but it's just a matter of, I really think, to your point, the one thing you can do against Tampa Bay is pass on them. And if they're going to have any sort of inclination to be competitive in this game, they're going to have to. New Orleans Saints really picked apart New England last week. And Tampa Bay is just going to come in with fire and fury, because losing that game to the LA Rams, which was a very good game, but also the return of Tom Brady, I just expect him to just have he's a top 5 QB for me this week, just without a doubt. We're not here to talk about Brady, because that's a locked-in starter. A player that is not particularly locked in after a very disappointing Monday Night Football game, and I just want to make sure that people are still going to start him with confidence, is Jalen Hurts. Because I understand, after seeing whatever that Monday Night Football game was, that not starting him or not having in your top 12 is a possibility for you. And again, we're trying to talk about players outside the top 12, but we're also talking about again, quarterback is kind of tough. But I want to pick the tough guys. Hurts against Kansas City. Kansas City, one of the few teams right now I have to really update the info going into week 3. They're the only teams that are scoring and allowing 30 points per game. Now, it changed with the LA Chargers game, so I have to see if other teams have really matched them for it. But Hurts, still in a contest where they seemed very uncompetitive, was still able to get to a pretty solid scoring total. He underthrew a very bad long pass, I believe, to Rager, which if he throws it in the end zone, at the very least, it's an incomplete pass. But a very poor underthrow led to an interception. And it was one of the early things that went down for Philadelphia that really stalled that game out for them. But here against Kansas City at home, which I think is a little bit better, because anytime that you have to go into Arrowhead, it's a real disaster for a young quarterback. Because in all reality, we can pretty much consider him a rookie. He's in his 7 starts. It would be 8th on Sunday. You still have that rushing upside for him. His floor so far has been 34 rushing yards, but in 5 of 7 games, he has over 60. So if you're going to get a free 4, 5, 6 points, without even including the passing yards, including the touchdowns, anything that goes down with them, Jalen Hurts is still a top 12 option for me. I would still start Derek Carr over him at my QB 10. But Jalen Hurts, if he is on your roster, still starting with confidence. I understand that game was really bad. One team did what I wanted, which was 41 from Dallas. And then one team you didn't really get anything fun from in the Philadelphia side, because Zach Ertz scored a touchdown, and at one point I didn't think he was even going to play this week due to the COVID situation. So start Jalen Hurts. Don't get too cute with him. That's my second QB for the week. Moving on to,
I like that one.
It's roster decisions. It's not always
Yep.
I like it's when you got
outside the box one.
So moving on to running back. John, who you want to talk about first at a position that always gives us extremely large headaches?
Yeah, man. Last week was a up and down, we'll say. I mean, Javonte Williams finishes the RB25, so not quite in that 24 range. And then Antonio Gibson, who I dinged as not being a top 24 play.
Listen, 73-yard touchdowns are not going to happen very often. So I get it.
Yeah, it was the emotions that ran through me on that play. You would have no idea, Matt, because I had no choice but to start Taylor Heineke last week in a 2-quarterback league, and I really didn't want to. And so the whole 73 yards, I was like, score. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, but I told people not to play him.
Yeah, and it's tough. Trust me, it is tough with these. That's why I try not looking at my rosters. I try to just say what I say about players, and if my opponents, take my advice and beat me with it, there's not much I can do. That's the curse of having public ranks and doing the shows. So
thanks to that 73-yard touchdown, finishes RB17. But my running back, first guy I'm going to talk about today is, we've spoken about his backfield mate earlier in week 2. I'm talking about Zack Moss here, referring to his backmate Devin Singletary. But Zack Moss, I've got him. He's the RB27 according to expert consensus rankings. I've got him slightly higher at 22 this week. Led the backfield in opportunities last week, and there should be similar or maybe even better game script here for him, as they are 16.5-point favorites here against the Houston Texans. The Buffalo Bills are. And over the last 2 weeks, which are the 2 games that Zack Moss was active, because remember, he was a healthy scratch in week 1, he's led this backfield in opportunities, and he's also led them in opportunities inside the red zone. So I think in a game, again, where there's 16.5-point favorites, Moss should be a solid top 24 running back play this week.
Yeah, I'm a coward, and I have him and Singletary ranked back-to-back. And I'm going to talk about more later tonight on GR Weekly. But if you don't, there's going to be scoring aplenty from the Buffalo side. I think it's just going to come down to who does the scoring. So Moss and Singletary, one has had the better game, one has had the less good game, and then one has had the they split the other one. So it's really been a big sort of cluster, and I understand Moss has really been the better player over the last 2 weeks. He scored 2 touchdowns on 10 touches in week 2. It's just crazy stuff. But running back is a disaster. So we need to talk about Peyton Barber. So Peyton Barber, 100-yard game against the Miami Dolphins, now gets the best matchup for the position. 500 rushing yards have been allowed by the LA Chargers to opposing running backs. 4 have had more 70 or more yards, and 2 have had 100-yard games against them. So I don't understand, Gibson and Pollard and Zeke, these are all good players. Clyde Edwards-Helaire last week, which was one of my picks. Helaire and Mike Davis were my options. So I nailed that one. But Barber here, if we have to keep the news out for what Josh Jacobs is going to have happen. If he is active, it changes this entire backfield. But him and Drake are both starts. But the one thing we can't say about John Gruden, he didn't lie about this. He did say that Peyton Barber he liked and would get a lot of work. He has led them in carries both weeks that Barber has been the lead back and now gets this matchup. And it looks really dumb to say Peyton Barber is a top 24 lock, but he's a top 24 lock, and I hate it.
Yeah, man. Look, he's another guy I had down as well. 70% of the opportunities the last 2 weeks. You've already mentioned the matchup with the Chargers. I think he's a viable RB2 play this week.
It is the best matchup I believe you can currently have. I was looking through the different teams' points per game allowed. This is like the layup spot. Running backs against LA are in great spots, and it just really irks me because Peyton Barber is Peyton Barber. And it's not even like Kenyon Drake is doing particularly well. He's been fine. So I think both are actually going to be starts in this Monday night contest against LA, where we wanted a big scoring Monday night last week, and we got 60 points total. Again, it was dumb ways. And I think we could see the exact same sort of stuff this week against the LA Chargers, a big divisional game. Both these teams are trying to get wins. The Kansas City Chiefs are 1-2. You're going to want to get a lead on the Chiefs because they are the Chiefs. So this is a big game. Las Vegas is undefeated. The Chargers are 2-1. Yes, they won week 1. So this is a huge sort of situation. I'm expecting fireworks on Monday night, and Peyton Barber should technically be in your lineups. We, unfortunately, with it being Monday night game, we're going to get a little bit later news on Josh Jacobs this week. So just really keep news for that, because I got a lot of Peyton Barber now off of waivers, and I'd like to start him.
Yeah, another guy that I got off waivers a couple weeks ago is another guy I'm going to bring up this week, Cordell Patterson. We talked about him a little bit last week, but he's the expert consensus running back 44, one spot behind the aforementioned Peyton Barber. But he's continuing to see work in this backfield. He's seen 40% of the work in this backfield thus far. He's getting the receptions, which is important. Not that Mike Davis isn't getting those, but they're both getting those. But he's been the more productive, the more explosive running back in this backfield. And, we never wish injury upon anybody or anything, but if Mike Davis goes down, Cordell Patterson is the lead guy in this backfield. And so he's a guy that should not only be on your roster, but I think could be, if you need a low end flex option at the running back 2 position, also has wide receiver eligibility in some formats as well. Most formats, I believe. Then I think Cordell Patterson is definitely a guy that could be in play this week against the Washington defense that, while they are a bit tougher against the run, they can give up receptions to running backs, and there's not many weapons in this Atlanta offense to throw the ball to. So Cordell Patterson definitely fits the bill here.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off that because I had him listed down as well. I wanted to talk about him. So Patterson, we get to see really what it looks like when a receiver is listed as a running back. So I have him into my top 30 currently at running back, but he's outside my top 40 at receiver because on Fantasy Pro, he's ranked in both spots. Now I don't know particularly how it's accounting for it, like how it just finished out the listings, but I rank him in both positions. Him and Davis are also back to back. I don't like this matchup for running backs. I do like this matchup for receivers. Both of those guys can catch passes like you totally acclaimed to be. Patterson is seeing a lot of work, I think, due to Gage being out. And if Davis ever gets hurt, I think Gallman finally gets activated because I don't think Patterson, as a larger body, can really sustain like 15 carries a game. I just don't think that would be healthy for him. But Patterson, because you're literally seeing a receiver with the running back tag on him, and that's valuable. Like we've seen in the past, like when Jalen Samuels was a tight end on Yahoo for whatever reason, he was like a top 5 tight end that week. It's things like that. It's like the Taysom Hill nonsense with, was it ESPN, where he was a quarterback at tight end and he was the best tight end in the world that week because it's a quarterback. That's silly. So that sort of thing. He's I don't want to say like position rank, like slotted, but you're going to see what the advantages are because last year, like tight end, right? The tight end 3 with like 170 points is like wide receiver like 38. Logan Thomas was like Michael Gallup. And no one wanted Michael Gallup.
Yeah, no.
So that's the kind of things we get to see. But my second running back is Nahim Heinz, and it's to the afraidness of everyone out there with Jonathan Taylor. And I think Jonathan Taylor is still a top 12 option this week. But when we saw 3 red zone carries for Nahim Heinz, and I believe 1 with inside the 10-yard line where he scored on, compared to Jonathan Taylor, who is currently 0 for 7 from inside the 5-yard line, which is really where the money's made. From the 20, might as well be from the 40. But if you're getting carries from inside the 5 or 10-yard line, that's where the real running back money is made. And he's currently 0 for on that. Still a top 12 option for me. I actually got a DM this week asking about Joe Mixon to Jonathan Taylor. And I told him that really, he was kind of hesitant about the whole deal. But I was like, listen, if you want to keep with Mixon as a player, it's a guy who's 1 and 2 right now and needs a win. Mixon, I think, is going to go off tomorrow against Thursday Night Football against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Taylor, I am a little bit worried that, especially now with Marlon Mack being asked for a trade, that gives hope to Taylor, but it gives hope to Nahim Heinz. His role was very set last year. I believe the 3rd most receptions at the position, I believe only behind Jay McKissick and Alvin Kamara. When you have a guy like Nahim Heinz, who in PPR formats, we just talked about with Cordell Patterson, how valuable it is to have sustainable receiving work. If Heinz is also going to get real normal running back inside the 10 sort of carries, Nahim Heinz is really pushing to be a player that you need to start weekly. I'm starting him over a guy like Melvin Gordon this week in one league, but over guys like Trey Sermon, I think even, Kareem Hunt is a possibility. Chase Edmonds is really a toss up right there. I prefer Edmonds, but it's like really like what you're going to go with. And I think in that tough LA Rams game, this is a real like RB2 when we don't have too many guys to talk about because unfortunately the position sucks. And one of the players I had to speak about was Peyton Barber. Moving on to
I like the play. I like the play of Nahim Heinz, man. He's been productive in this offense. He clearly has a role. They don't have much in the way of receivers right now, so he's one of their primary pass catchers. So
and we've seen this, like these valuable pass catching running backs, James White, Tariq Cohen. We've seen guys in years past where it's like, J.D. McKissick last year, it's really Nahim Heinz as well last year, where it's just valuable because as soon as you move them to a spot. Because running back, it's just in PPR, if you can just pick those receiving points matter so much. Nahim Heinz, I really like the start for him this week. Although I do still rank Jonathan Taylor as a top 12 option, but I think they can both be involved. A receiver. Definitely. Who do you like a receiver?
Yeah, man. This one I thought was a little disrespectful when I saw the ranking here. Cole Beasley, wide receiver 36. This is a guy who has a 24% target share, second on the team. He's tied to Josh Allen. They are 16.5-point favorites against Houston. He's in on 83% of the routes on the season, third on the team. He is the extension of this run game. He's an extension. We talk about, the Bills don't run the ball. The Bills don't run the ball. Well, they're technically running it 10 times a game when they target Cole Beasley because his ADOT is basically that of a running back yard per attempt. So he is an extension of this run game here. He's again matched up against Houston, who has not been great defensively at all. And this Buffalo offense looks like it's picking up here after their massacre of the Washington football team. Combine that with the massacre of the Miami Dolphins. I think Josh Allen's only going to go up from here, and you want to be tied to this offense as much as you can, especially when they're 16.5-point favorites. Cole Beasley, think he's got to be a top 24 play in PPR.
Yeah, he is for me. He's top 30. I'm at 27 right now. It gets really crowded. You're gonna have some players possibly injuries or quarterback situation like Allen Robinson, right? I currently have Allen Robinson ranked ahead of Cole Beasley, but I could very easily disappear if we have Fields again because I don't want to trust him at all after that performance. But I just want to say I even have Emmanuel Sanders, so a player who I'm going to bring up right now, where he's not a must start for me, in Robert Woods. I have all three Buffalo receivers ranked ahead of Robert Woods this week against Arizona. I don't see a path where you can trust Woods right now. They don't care about him like at all. Unfortunately, Cooper Kupp is just the best freaking receiver right now it's ever graced this planet. So unfortunately, Robert Woods has just been completely left by the wayside. And I get that he's not been a complete disaster, 12 fantasy points in full PPR through the first 2 weeks, but the Tampa Bay game, the one where I really thought, okay, this is the time to show out that he's really going to showcase that he is deserving to be here. I'm really making a stand. I'm one of the lowest rankers on Woods. There's no reason to get out of the way because there's so many good. The problem is 12 points for receivers. That's still like receiver 20 something, with the average like points per game, like of a top 12 receiver to a top 24, 12 to 15 is really like the difference. What I've seen in the past, like 15 or higher is like a top 12 receiver, and 12 points is like a top 24. He's not that. So he's not a must start. He's not in my top 24. He's 32. Some of the guys I'm ranking ahead of Robert Woods right now, I said both of the Buffalo guys. If they're active, both Pittsburgh Steelers in both Juju and Claypool, Odell Beckham, who looks like he's ready to rock and roll after that performance last week against Chicago. Marquise Brown is a tough one. I understand the 3 drops, but if Bateman is not active, they are throwing downfield. They're in the top 10 in air yards right now at Baltimore, which is insane to me because they've never been like above like 31st. So for right now, Woods, he just can't be. He can't be anything more than a flex to you. Like, we're getting past that point of, it doesn't matter where he was drafted. Cooper Kupp's amazing. He's like completely open on like 3 plays a game, and Robert Woods is just not even being looked at because Taylor. First off, we have 2 things. One, Kupp's being so good. But Higbee has actually turned into a reliable tight end, which we wanted to in last season, but he's playing just so many snaps and he's active and it's just another target. Stafford likes those two guys. Woods is not fitting into this offense right now, so you can't consider him a must start. And it really stinks because I really like Bobby Trees a lot.
Yeah, that one I'm a little less. Yeah, that one is tough, right? Because I've been on this, Robert Woods, he saw 16% of targets week 1, 28% in week 2, and then another 16% in week 3. So it seems like there's some up and down going there. And we've seen this offense in the past do this with these two receivers where, one of them, Cooper Kupp does this every year where he'll have like 40% of the team targets. But then by the time you get to the end of the season and you look at the season-long numbers, like they're almost dead even in targets.
I will at least only say that happened with Goff. We do have a new quarterback, and right now Stafford and Kupp, that's the lock. That is one of the best connections in football right now, if not the best.
Absolutely. But also Sean McVay, one of the better play callers in football, right? One of the best adjusters. And so I think it's more has to do with Sean McVay than it maybe has to do with who the quarterback is and who's calling the trigger play. Because at one point or another, teams are going to say, we have to stop letting Cooper Kupp
just do whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly. Like at one point or another, teams are going to have to stop doing that and they're going to have to take him away. And Sean McVay is a good enough coach to say, okay, well, if you want to take Cooper Kupp away, that's fine. I've got a really good receiver over here in Robert Woods. And so as long as that target share number, he's got a 20% target share on the season. Again, 2 games at 16, 1 game at 28%. I think as long as that target share number is up above 20%, I will be in on Robert Woods. But the moment I see it trending where it's like consecutive games where he's not even involved, then maybe I'll have more things to say about that. But my second wide receiver here, I'm going to take a shot here. I'm really just, kind of calling my shot here with Robbie Anderson. We've got no Christian McCaffrey this week. We've got a game where the Carolina Panthers actually are going to have to play against a competitive opponent. Week 1, they got the New York Jets. Week 2, they shut out New Orleans 17-0. And week 3, they actually had to play for a second half there. But ultimately that score ended up 29-4 or 29-6, something, whatever the final score was. But I think that this is a game against Dallas where you're not going to be able to just coast at halftime, or you're not going to be able to, Sam Darnold has 200 yards at passing at the half, but only finishes with 280 or 300. Like you're going to have to throw the ball here. And Robbie Anderson will be a big part of that. Dallas, again, they've been playing much better defensively, I think, but ultimately I think Robbie Anderson will have to be more involved again when you consider Christian McCaffrey, when you consider his role in this offense as a deep threat presence back to what he was doing when he was with New York with Sam Darnold. I think Robbie Anderson can come in here. He's expert consensus 39. I think he can push that top 24 finish in this matchup here against Dallas.
Yeah, it's really tough with him. And I at one point I was one of the lowest rankers on him. I have adjusted as such. I'm around Ricer 40 now. So a little bit closer to consensus. At one point I was like 47, 50. With Robert Woods, at least with him, there's some consideration of just trying to get involved, and it's just not really working out. Anderson, what really worried me was when McCaffrey went down and Moore also got banged up late in the game. They still didn't seem to care about him. But this Dallas matchup, if there's ever going to be a spot where you at least feel overtly confident that Robbie Anderson turns back into Robbie Anderson, it would be this one. I'm still not going to get too crazy about him. The highest ranking I see from full PPR is wide receiver 24. So no one's really considering him any sort of a must play. But it's still
I've got him at 23.
Yeah, so you're high. You're definitely, but you're making a claim on him. And I'm still, I guess, on the opposite end where it's like, I guess I'm being really safe with him because I'm just very strict to my ranks, and I don't really want to go on him right here. But
keep in mind, Carolina has not trailed all season.
Yeah, no, and that's it. They've really played just New Orleans had 4 coaches. Houston, the Houston game where they're on Thursday night, rookie quarterback that, it was like all bad games, and the Jets. Sorry. So these are bad games. This is possibly a great game because you have an undefeated Carolina team against Dallas. And if it goes wild and crazy and Ryan Anderson shows up, excellent. We want this. We love that. If he doesn't show up this week, it's like whichever the worst one is, DEFCON 1 or DEFCON 5. It's like, you got to cut him loose. It's time for him to go. And we don't want that, because I liked Anderson quite a bit coming into this year. So trust me, I'm with you. If he shows up, it's like Clyde Edwards-Helaire last week. If he didn't show up against the Chargers, then it's like mega panic. If Anderson doesn't show up this week, mega panic.
Yep.
But a player I want to talk about entering a terrible matchup, the second worst matchup, but he has been considered possibly matchup proof, possibly quarterback proof. I want to talk about Brandon Cooks for a second, because this Buffalo matchup is one of the worst you can actually have in football. I don't know if Tre'Davious White is just going to be attached to him, but man, he's a consensus like top 20 receiver right now. And I'm technically a little worried because there's no one else on Houston I even want to start in this game. But if we go into mega ultra super garbage time and Brandon Cooks just picks up like a gimme, like 5 catches on one drive, which can totally happen late in the game, he could have nothing for 2 quarters and then like 45 yards for 5 receptions on one drive that just still ends like in a field goal or something, or a turnover on downs. There are paths where he's successful in this and they don't even score points because he's just the only guy that matters for Houston. None of the running backs matter. None of the receivers matter. I think Davis Mills is not a bad quarterback. There's not really much else to go on after just, him getting thrust into the spot that he was thrown into on Thursday Night Football. But, man, Brandon Cooks, I have him in the top 24 option this week, receiver. Do you have him as such? Because if he's not, I completely understand, because I think this is one of the tougher players, because last week we saw, okay, cool, it doesn't matter. Just throw him out there. Carolina's been a great defense, 3-0, yada, yada, yada. But Buffalo is a terrible matchup. They've only allowed, I believe, they are the only Chargers of Philadelphia have allowed fewer yards to receivers, and one of only 4 teams to allow only 1 touchdown to receive. The other ones being the Las Vegas Raiders, the Rams, and the Jets. This is bad.
Yeah, it is somewhat bad, but at the same time, I have them. I felt like we did this a lot last year, where we're like, I was thinking about this coming into the show, right? Talking about wide receivers, and I feel like we almost have to look at wide receivers who are in that 30% target share range. We have to look at them as matchup proof, because ultimately, when the game gets to a point like we're envisioning here, 16.5 point underdogs against the Buffalo Bills, you're going to have to throw the football. And when you throw it, who better to throw it to than your 30% target share wide receiver? And so I think Brandon Cooks is the kind of player he's going to see, again, over these last 2 weeks with David Mills playing, majority of the snaps at quarterback, a 50% target share and a 40% target share. That's a really high number. And if he's going to get that, if he's going to get 7, 8, 10 targets in this game, then I will be in on Brandon Cooks. I've got him down as a top 12 option. Again, it's mainly based on target volume. The matchup's not great, but again, I think with the target share that he's projected, I've got him with seeing 9 targets in this game. I think that's good enough to take the shot on Brandon Cooks.
You know what's actually considering is my other player to talk about on this spot is Calvin Ridley, by the way. I have him wide receiver 18. I do not like Ridley this week at all. I thought that was a little too spicy, and technically no one is going to sit Calvin Ridley, but I just want to at least have it be known that he is my wide receiver 18. I'm going to take a look real quick to see where people have him ranked, but there is probably no receiver I don't like more right now than Ridley in this spot. Yeah, I'm not the lowest ranker. There's a few people down here. I do like seeing that I have the same ranking as guys like Andy Behrens and Kyle Yates, who are very, very, very smart guys. But I just want to say Calvin Ridley against Washington. The Atlanta Falcons currently have no completions of 20 yards or more through the air this year. and Calvin Ridley is at 6 yards per target, almost a full 3 yards less than any season in his career prior to now. Calvin Ridley was almost the guy I want to talk about on the spot. And I guess I am talking about on the spot, but Brandon Cooks is the one we're going to talk about, in the brought up next week. I think Cooks is a must start sort of guy for where you draft him, where he was. I'm in on him, but
yeah, it's tough to talk about because last week I mean, look, I'm not going to be the guy that's like, oh, last week I said I was going to say CeeDee Lamb and look what happened, but like CeeDee Lamb was a guy that I had ranked outside of my top 20 last week, and it's tough doing that because some of these like a guy like CeeDee Lamb could score a touchdown on one play,
and he almost did. He almost was down at the one.
He was down at the one. But again, he got 44 yards in that play, finished the game with 66 receiving yards, right? So again, anything could almost happen. And Calvin Ridley's the same way, where it's like it really just takes one play with Calvin Ridley, and he could really make make the whole day happen. But I am with you. I've got him out. I've got him actually. I don't even want to. I'm not even going to say where I have him because I haven't gone through my entire process yet. This is kind of just. I projected the fantasy points. I've adjusted them for schedule, and I just let it tell me where it is. But after I've fully adjusted, I will just say he's outside my top 20.
Which, again, it makes sense. I think we're getting to that point in the season where players like that, we have to have these conversations. It's kind of like why Josh Allen last week was outside my top 10 in quarterback, because he was a very bad fantasy start for 2 weeks. And then, of course, he goes and scores 45 points and is like the highest scoring player on the week. It happens, but some player, before we move on to tight end, a few players I just want to mention real quick. The Raiders wide receivers, I like both of them to be low end flex options again in that Chargers game. Even though Chargers have been a bad matchup so far this year, I think there's gonna be a lot of scoring. And Chase Claypool, if he is active, I do not know anything that's going to be happening with that Pittsburgh game as of moment. But if Claypool is the only guy after, let's say he's active, Juju's out. Let's say both are out and James Washington's been a guy, but Claypool saw a absolute ton of targets last week. So something just to consider on that one. But moving on to tight end. So what do you think about on tight end there?
Yeah, we talked about this one off air. I'm just going to, throw it out now. Mike Gaseki, man. And Mike Gaseki, he's been one of my favorite tight ends in the league over the last 2 years. Is ranked the tight end 15 on Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings. I think he's a top 12 play at the tight end position. Now, again, we don't know if the last 2 weeks with Mike Gesicki have been because of game script or they've been because of Jacoby Brissett. I will go with the Jacoby Brissett factor and maybe the game script as well, but they are facing the Indianapolis Colts. This game should probably be a little bit closer in terms of the score. There's not, the spread is pretty close here. And Mike Gesicki is the kind of guy who he saw 12 targets last week, and he can make a lot happen with those 12 targets. Mike Gesicki is a freak athlete. And when you're looking to play these tight ends, I want the guy that has the opportunity to score 20, 30 points in my lineup. Because at the end of the day, 5 points versus 8 points there's no difference at tight end. So give me the guy who could score 20.
We actually have a question here in the chat real quick. I'm going to throw it up here on the screen. Bam. So start one, as I remembered how to do this, and I have been doing this for a week now. Start one, Melvin Gordon, Damian Harris, or James Robinson. I have it very, very fairly in James Robinson's favor. Of these three, within Melvin Gordon, Damian Harris. Unfortunately, James White is going to be out for the season. Let's see how that affects his receiving outlook. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still a run defense I am not very comfortable playing running backs into. Who is your favorite of these three guys?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be James Robinson. Going up against Cincinnati, the matchup's not overly great, but it's not terrible either. He saw volume last week. I'm going to be completely out on Damian Harris this week. That Tampa Bay run defense, absolutely phenomenal, and their pass defense is terrible. And we've seen Belichick go into games. Granted, it was with Tom Brady, but we've seen him go into games and not even attempt a rush. So I don't think that they're going to go into the teeth of this defense here.
And then let's just run through 2 more questions here. We'll run through them real quick because we're getting a little long in the show. Real quick, Dolphins or Packers defense? I prefer the Packers against Pittsburgh.
Same. I prefer the Packers as well.
And it's even better if we have all those receivers out. I don't think Deontay Johnson will play. We're still going to up in the air for Claypool and Juju. And then last one, Kyle Pitts or Mike Gesicki. You just said you like Gesicki. Do you like Gesicki more than Kyle Pitts?
Let me see. This is tough because I do like Pitts' peripherals, but the production hasn't been there. I have Gaseki ranked higher, so that's what I'll go with.
He says Gaseki. I'm going to still go with Kyle Pitts, although I completely get it. At a certain point, though, the Atlanta offense needs to kind of get it going. Washington is not one of the better offenses to do that, but I believe Dawson Knox got a touchdown against them last week, so maybe there's some hope
Washington
there.
Even played a quality tight end? Like,
depends what you think of Dawson Knox, because Dawson Knox is the tight end 8 on the season. So I'm going to go with Pitts. Gasecki has come on strong, and if he gets another good looking from Brissett, I can see him being a top 12 option as long as Brissett is active. But let's see how it all works out. But my tight end that I'm going to be talking about, and also thank you for the questions, is as of course I X out my page on my Sonic in 1 second. My mouse is bad. I gotta give you a mouse. For some reason, it like double clicks all the time with my left mouse buttons. Let me just scroll back to my notes. This is great. This is great. Let's go with Dawson Knox. that's who I want to talk about. Dawson Knox. We've brought up a lot of Buffalo Bills this show, and it's understandable because they're all moving into much better spots. But as I just aforementioned, Dawson Knox, tight end 8 on the season. Now he's had a good amount of touchdown luck. But if there is a game that I'm going to at least start a tight end sort of with a position where touchdowns are king, and really the only thing you want to care about outside of 4 or 5 guys, yeah, Dawson Knox is a top 12 option for me here in week 12. I prefer him to, unfortunately, Mike Gesicki, but I prefer him to guys like Robert Tonyan, Dalton Schultz, Jared Cook, Jonnu Smith. But I've even toyed with Dallas Goedert against Kansas City. But yes, for me, Dawson Knox, top 12 option. Is he a little bit, I've seen the comparison to Robert Tonyan on Twitter. I understand that. But this position is terrible. And like outside of Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Andrews, Hawkinson, because Pitts has not been productive, do you really have had a leg to stand on saying any of these guys are good? I was told that, 40 yards, 5 receptions, and a score is Dawson Knox's ceiling. I would love that. You're kidding me? I could have 15 points from Dawson Knox. I would take that all day. I would love 7 points from my tight end, let alone 15. So yeah, Dawson Knox is my number 1 tight end right now for the show. Who's your second tight end you want to talk about there, John?
No, man, I like that Dawson Knox one for either 4 receptions or a touchdown in 3 games. It's a little, small sample size, but we'll take it here. I will actually talk about somebody that you brought up while talking about Dawson Knox, and I'm going to talk about Robert Tonyan. And I think Robert Tonyan is ranked too high. He is the tight end 12.
Yay, John's doing what I do, which is talk down about players. Let's do it. Talk bad about him.
This one's not hard. He's not involved in this offense. 4 targets, 3 targets, 1 target. He's averaging, hold on, I have it here.
Does some tabulations real quick.
Oh, he's not even on the sheet because he's the tight end 26 right now, averaging 6.2 PPR points a game. And that includes just 1 touchdown. So I'm sorry. I don't think that you can consider playing Robert Tonyan over guys like Mike Gesicki or Dawson Knox, who's been more productive. Because you would take a profit playing these guys over playing Robert Tonyan every week.
Yeah, it's Green Bay, but we just saw with the San Francisco game, they can win games by literally just having Rodgers, Adams, and Jones do everything. Because Marquez Valdes-Scantling was the only other player on Monday Night Football to have more than 2 targets. It was everyone at 2, Valdez at 4, and then Adams at like 18. So that's what we're looking at with the Green Bay offense. Not a player that's going to be one of my 2, but I just want to say Rob Gronkowski is a must start tight end this week. I understand the injury situation. If he is active, if he doesn't score against New England with Brady, I will be shooketh. So that's kind of, I don't want to say it's a lock, but that is very much something that I think will come up. And before I talk about my second tight end, we do have a question here. Should I trade Damian Harris for Chubba Hubbard? In my league, I have a CMC owner desperate for running backs. I could get someone like Cooks, Evans, or Jamar Chase. That sounds kind of fun. Those receivers, I'll say that.
So they're going to trade Hubbard for Damian Harris. Is that what I'm seeing?
Because he says about the running backs, it's kind of like we prefer, I guess, rest of the season. Because rest of the season, obviously, we take Damian Harris. If you need a win right now, it's Chubba Hubbard. For as long as CMC is out, especially I think in a very good matchup this week. I like the Dallas matchup, so I will at least say in that regard, because I don't know what Philadelphia did, deciding to have 5 carries against the Dallas defense. I don't know what that was all about, but Hubbard here is a top 20 running back for me in week 4.
Absolutely.
So if you need a win this week, let's say you're 1-2, 0-3, you keep Hubbard, right? You're 2-1, you're 3-0, you trade Hubbard away. I like these receivers. I like the receivers more than Harris. If you need the running back, Harris is fine. Mm-hmm. But the running backs, the receivers I love. Who's your favorite of those 3? Cooks, Evans, or Chase?
Man, that's tough.
Right? I mean, Chase right now without Higgins is one thing. I'll say that. I think he's not my favorite option. It's always down to Evans or Cooks. I think it's Brandon Cooks.
Look, yeah, Brandon Cooks is going to get that volume, but the quality of targets are going to be much better coming from Tom Brady. And those touchdown opportunities are going to be there. So, because Mike Evans can have those blow up games where he catches 2-3 touchdowns, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm fine there. But Jamar Chase to me is like maybe the best combination of both. There's not going to be enough volume in this offense. There's not the volume that we're used to seeing from this Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow offense, where Joe Burrow was averaging like 40-something dropbacks last year, and he's averaging 25 right now.
Yeah, there's a few worries I have with that. He has 3 touchdowns of 30 yards or more and 4 touchdowns total. Only 2 players have more touchdowns in the league currently right now, Aaron Jones and Cooper Kupp. For a rookie, honestly, we just had Justin Jefferson explode last year. We're having Jamar Chase explode right now. Top 5 receiver currently in points scored. Cooks and Evans feel safer to continue their production. Cooks, I think, is the safest to hit his production every week. Evans has the highest ceiling based on the offense because Houston's having, even though Cooks is doing this, I don't think he's scored yet. I want to fact check that. I'm going to do so right now. But I don't believe Brandon Cooks has actually gotten in the end zone with all this fantasy production that he has had. It's really just coming from
one touchdown.
One score. Okay. He scored against Cleveland. But yeah.
Carolina. You're right. Cleveland.
32 targets so far through 3 weeks. That's pretty insane. And you chase volume, right? You chase those numbers. Either or, if you can get amazing, all 3 of them, really. Whichever you can get, cool. I'm trying to lean more towards Evans or Cooks. Prefer with your preference. I think John leans more Evans. I lean more Cooks. And it's still. I might still be talking Cooks up way too highly in that regard, because Evans can have a 45-point game and he can have a 4-point game, and that's just kind of what he does. Cooks feels more like, hey, I'm going to get you 16 like every week, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, I would definitely try and aim for those receivers if you can. Thanks for the question. So my second tight end, because you've hit both your tight ends, correct? I think I did this last week. I didn't get you. Okay, good. Dalton Schultz. Listen, I don't want to talk too much into which touchdowns are going to be because he does score 2 on in this Monday Night Football game. But compare Dalton Schultz to Blake Jarwin through the 3 weeks. 15 targets, 14 receptions, 143 yards, 2 scores. Compared to Jarwin's 9, 8, 71, and 0 in order. If there is a preferred target of the 2 tight ends, and again, I'm not even touchdowns are one thing. Yes, did score 2. It was a wacky game on Monday Night Football. None of the people we want to have good fantasy days really did so for Dallas outside of Zeke and Dak. But I think there is starting to look like there is a preference of the 2 guys in this offense. And as long as Michael Gallup is out, I think he's a tight end you can look at as a top 15 option. So that would be my preferred guy. And I like him here in this Carolina matchup to do so. So with that, John, we're nearing the 50-minute mark, which is fun because you're going to have to do a podcast in like an hour, and I'm going to be doing a podcast in an hour. So 30 minutes for you. Okay. With that, thank you first off for the questions. Thank you for everyone who has tuned in. with that, we're going to be back here. Unfortunately, just me next week. I'm going to be doubling up on Wednesday because John gets to go have fun.
Well, it's not unfortunate because I'll be on a vacation celebrating my anniversary. But
yeah, unfortunate for me. I'm gonna see maybe we get a guest in here. Maybe our old buddy Jeff will stop in, or maybe it's just me alone in my thoughts, like I am 3 days a week on GR Weekly. But with that, thank you for joining us. I will be back here on Wednesday. Tune in if you subscribe to the GR channel. Thank you, because I'll be back here in an hour, breaking down a few games. Unfortunately, I've been pretty busy with school, so not as many games today on Wednesday. More is going to be on Friday. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, me, GR Weekly at 7:30, 5:30, it's Off the Grid. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Gary and the crew breaks down Getting Defensive for all your IDP needs. And on the weekends, we got Kyle and maybe Jeff sometimes, whenever he decides to get out of his little hole that he hides in to do all the stats on the back end, covering the slate, breaking down DFS. So with that, John, any last words?
No, just make sure you're following Matt at Methodical1. Make sure you're following me at JR Football Nerd. Make sure you're following Gridiron Ratings at Gridiron Rating.
There you go. I always forget that we don't have the S. It was too expensive. Can't buy the S. So with that, he's John. I'm Matt. We're going to see you guys.